Hi. Now it's a part 2 of overview of Old Testament events. This part is about Kingdom era. Do you remember the last time we finished with time of Judges, 13 judges, including the Samuel at the last judges. At that point, Israelites didn't have a kings, but now they demanded, we want a king like any other countries. They demanded, by the way, which wasn't the God's way, but God granted. Well, God gave them a warning through Samuel. Well, it's going to be really hard. It's not going to be that good. It's going to be really hard. But if you want it, you have it. So, the kingdom era started in Israel. Samuel, as I said, it was the last judge. But after that, he went around as people demanded to God that they would have a king. Samuel went around. He was instructed by God to find a king, and he found Saul. But Saul wasn't quite fit for the king. So, after a while, he's still king. God told Samuel to find David. So, David was anointed as a king. A lot of things going on. You can have a look at the Doorway to the Word about story about David. Around that kind of lot of things, the epic things going on. Anyway, David became king, and his kingdom went on, and his son Solomon, who built the temple, became king after David. Okay, so that was the Israelites' beginning of the Israelites' kingdom. Interesting thing is, after Solomon, kingdom of Israel was divided in two, northern kingdom and southern kingdom, and two sons of Solomon, Jeroboam and Rehoboam, established those two kingdoms. They actually divided the kingdom. Well, interesting though. Northern kingdom, Israel. Southern kingdom, Israel. Northern kingdom, Israel, is usually called the kingdom of Israel. And southern kingdom is usually called kingdom of Judah. And these are the differences. Okay, northern kingdom of Israel went on for 250 years. Okay, and they consist of 10 tribes, and they had 19 kings from different families and different dynasties, and all kings are considered as unrighteous. They didn't follow God, and their end came at 721 BC when the Assyrian Empire invaded and ended the northern kingdom. That's the northern kingdom of Israel. Southern kingdom of Judah went on for a little bit longer, went on for 400 years. And they consisted of two tribes, Judah and Benjamin. Only two tribes, comparison to northern kingdom had 10. Okay, and they had 19 kings and one queen from dynasty of David. They all coming from one dynasty, you see. The northern kingdom had a different family, different dynasty that brought kings, but this one is a line of David, and through this line that Jesus came to eventually. And northern kingdom, the kings had a kind of mixture of righteous kings and unrighteous kings, you see. And this kingdom came to the end at 586 BC, when Babylonian Empire came and took them in captivity for 70 years. So, this is the divided kingdom. You can read that in the Book of Kings and Book of Chronicles and different events. Yeah, I'm not going to that today. So just remember, divided kingdoms went on for about 400 years. And this is a time that most of the prophets in the Bible were active. So you read all those books of prophets, and they're mostly about this time of era, the divided kingdom era. Okay, there are a few major events that you might hear. So this is what happens during this era. Prophet Elijah at the Mount Carmel. See, 1 Kings chapter 18. You can read that big story. He confronted the Baal worshipper. Baal is a pagan god, the worshippers. And also there's conflict between King Ahab of Northern Kingdom and his queen Jezebel. And that's the story of Elijah you can read. And Elijah's successor, the Elisha, his story is quite interesting as well. Something like a story about healing of Naaman, the leprosy, in 2 Kings chapter 5. This Naaman is actual general of foreign country. He was Aramite, so kingdom from Aram. Actually, this is a foreigner, not the Jews, you see. But this Naaman had suffered leprosy, and what shall we do? And one of the servants said, well, in Israel, there's a prophet called Elisha. He might be able to help. So Elisha was called and told Naaman to do this and do that. And Naaman first is reluctant, but actually followed Elisha's advice, and his leprosy is healed. Remember, Naaman was a foreigner, not the Jews, not the chosen people. But because listen to the God's prophet, God healed them. And Naaman said, wow, God of Israel is a true God. The Gentile, the foreigner, the pagan general actually recognized true God. I think that was interesting. And also, there's a big event in Israel around the time of Elisha. There's a deliverance of Samaria. Samaria is the capital of Northern Kingdom. And they suffered famine, and also they faced enemy siege. Really, really bad time, you see. And God delivered them from both of them. You can read in 2 Kings, chapter 6 and 7. This is the time of Elisha, see. And a little bit later, there's a story of Jehoshaphat. King Jehoshaphat is a king of Southern Kingdom. And he was facing the enemy. And he said, what shall we do? What shall we do? The enemy is so big. And do you know what Jehoshaphat did? He first prayed to God. The northern kings didn't do all those things. But southern king, the righteous king, prayed to God. They praised God and trusted God, and God delivered them. And delivered whole southern kingdom from enemy's hand, you see. And another story, famous story, about this time, the prophet Jonah was sent to Nineveh. Do you remember the story about Jonah? Because he didn't want to go there. So he jumped out of the boat and swallowed by the big fish, and the big fish took it to Nineveh. Yeah, so that happened about this time as well. So, divided kingdom, the kingdom era. First of all, it wasn't actually God's will to begin with, but people demanded to have a king, so God granted the demand. And there was King Saul, King David, King Solomon. It came. But after that, kingdom was divided in two. And those two kingdoms, a lot of things happened, and prophet was sent, and God is trying to help them, but people didn't listen, and they suffered, and eventually conquered by foreign empires. So that's the end of second part of Kingdom Era. See you next time in part 3.